Hey everybody, Nate the Farmer from down at Darnell Farms, and today we're going to talk about something very close to my heart, pumps. Alright guys, today we're going to be talking about pumping water, irrigation, something that's extremely important to any agricultural application, especially if you're a fruit producer like we are here at Darnell Farms. So, what do we have here? This is the Gorman-Rupp Model 64 AG pump. Very old pump. This pump is about, well, it was manufactured in the mid-50s. It's older than my father, as a matter of fact. What makes this pump particularly well applicable for our operation is it's the kind of pump that can make a lot of water and a lot of pressure. This pump actually is very special to me because my father owned a pump exactly like it. And he and I worked that pump to death. A friend of mine and I took years going field to field with a pump just like this, pumping water out over our strawberry plants and out over anything at our farm that needed water on it. And I would sweat and I would work, and when I went home I slept really well. And it was special to me even then because it was the same pump that my father had used. He would hook it to an old tractor that we had. Matter of fact, we're working on right now to restore that tractor, and he would pin the throttle back as hard as that tractor would run. I knew that it was extremely important to him that this pump ran, and he would do things to manipulate the characteristics of the pump, like put valves on the pump like I have here so that water would trickle over the casing, because this casing builds heat and gets hot after it's ran. And when you take it and you make it look nice and you take care of it, and you bring it back to life so that it has a second lease on life, so you can use it again so that your children can be involved with it, your children can get to use it, man, it's hard to describe how amazing it makes you feel. For folks out there who aren't familiar with a gear-driven PTO pump, I'm going to walk you through some of the characteristics of not only most gear-driven pumps, but ones that are specific to this model. The first thing it is a PTO pump. In other words, it has this shaft running from behind the tractor and is turned by the tractor. Now you could mount this to an engine and let an engine shaft coming out of an engine running, but it's very beneficial for us farmers to have something we can hook to a tractor. It makes our system modular so that we don't have to have a big engine that just sits stationary, and we can also move these pumps around. Now the second part of that is this is a gear-driven pump. What that means is there's a large gear being turned initially by the PTO shaft, which then turns a smaller gear, which is hooked to the part of the pump that pumps the water. And what you get is a multiplier effect. Now this pump is somewhere between 4 and 6 to 1. I don't know for sure because I never have actually got a chance to look at the specifics. All I know is it spins this shaft at around 540 RPMs, this big gear, and it multiplies it by about 4 to 6 times. So this little shaft here is really singing, okay? It's spinning a lot faster. And that's what a gearbox does. They're either an expansion or a reduction gearbox. They either make something come in fast and go slow, or in this application, they come in slow and it increases the speed. The next and most important part of any pump is what kind of pump it is and how it functions. This particular pump is a centrifugal pump. And the most important part of any centrifugal pump is the impeller. It's the heart of the operation. Deep inside this case is a large flat disc. We'll go over the table in a minute and I'll show you a little bit more about it. But suffice it to say, that's the part that makes the magic work. We talked about centrifugal pumps, and I want to do a better job to show you how they work. So, I'm going to give you an example of a smaller version of a centrifugal pump. We'll talk about the parts of it. This is off of a Berkeley irrigation pump, one of the ones we use to do our drip irrigation. It doesn't require quite as much pressure or quite as much volume, so it can be smaller. So the important part to understand is the impeller. That's the part that makes a pump work. That's this little gizmo right here. Water is coming in through the eye, and it's spinning in this direction, and the back side of these vanes is throwing the water into the volute chamber, okay? And this volute chamber is something that a lot of guys out there will recognize looks very similar to a turbocharger on the truck, okay? Or a car. It gives you grease monkeys. It's something to kind of relate to when it comes to pumps. You'll also notice that this looks an awful lot like the vanes of a turbocharger because it's very similar operation. A lot of the same things happening. Okay? So the water is thrown into the outside of the volute chamber, and that creates that high pressure and that force, and then comes out of the discharge. All right, so we'll take some stuff out of the shop here to give you guys a good example of how centrifugal force works and how you're working around the laws of physics. So if I take these big heavy bolts that I found laying over on the table over there, and I put them up in the air, and I let go of them, they fall because gravity is enacting a force upon them, okay? So that should tell us that if we put them in something and put it up there, they're still gonna fall, right? Right. Now, let's use another law of physics, centrifugal motion. You put the bolts inside the basket, and let's spin it. Now, gravity should tell me that those bolts should be falling and hit me in the face right now, but they're not. Why is that? Because we're creating a centrifugal force at the outside of that bucket. While my hand is spinning a little bit right here, the bucket's spinning a whole lot more, and there's an unbelievable amount of force being exerted on those bolts inside that bucket, and it's holding them against the bottom of the bucket. Okay? Now we're spinning. We're cranking our engine up. There's a lot of force going there. I wonder how far they'll go now. A long way. And that's the basis of what's happening inside that pump. One of the most important parts of a draft line, the suction line, and a centrifugal pump is your foot valve, okay? All the foot valve does is stop the water that's in this line from flowing back into the water source. Most importantly for this application is it's very hard to keep a centrifugal pump primed. So if you have a foot valve holding all the water in the system, especially if you have a little bit of gravity feeding the water from back in the field through the pipes back to the pump, you don't have to work so hard to get your pump primed, and it makes your life so much more easy. Okay, so now we got to decide who's going to get in the river and sit this thing out there. And we're going to solve this like we solve every important problem on this farm: paper, rock, scissors. All right, we're going to get in this beautiful clear Tuckasegee River. In my experience, the clearer the water, the colder the water. Here we go. Woo-hoo-hoo! Yep. Piece of styrofoam float came from the lake bed holding up boathouses. That will keep the foot valve, for the most part, off the river bottom. And just for safety's sake, we have the rope that we can tighten up and hold the foot valve or the draft line from moving downriver as the current gets faster or the river rises, and also an extra precaution to keep it from hitting the bed of the river, because if it touches the bottom of the river, you start sucking up a lot of trash, deposits of leaf litter. And that's not so good for the nozzles in the irrigation system. You want to have as clean a water as you possibly can get from the source. So that's what the big screen you saw at the bottom of our foot. Now, we're in the river this far. If I don't go all the way in, I've done it injustice to this beautiful river bank. So I'm going in. Okay, let's get out of there now. I'm good. Okay, it's so cold. That was a stupid idea. Shouldn't have done that part. So now, we have all the river stuff done, hopefully. Don't have to get back in. Next step is attaching our draft line, the suction part, to the part of the pump that holds it on. Now this is a single band connection. It uses a special type of hook right here that we're going to hook on and then use this latch mechanism on this side to tighten it up. One of the problems with this system is, over time, this piece of rubber will dry rot. And this one's in okay shape. I've seen worse ones. What we'll do to cheat today is take some grease like you would use on any machine, and we'll smear a nice coating of grease on this before we attach it. And once we get the grease on there, we can find that in there, and that grease will fill up any spots where the air will be getting in. Remember, we want an airtight seal or as close to one as we can get. All right, so we've never actually used this method to fill the draft line up, but we're gonna try it out. We've got a shop vac. We're gonna turn it on and see if we can build enough vacuum with it to change the atmospheric pressure in this pipe and draw the water up to the pump. If that don't work, we'll do it the old-fashioned way with a bucket. All right, I got really cold, so I had to put my boots and my jacket back on. I can't even talk now. The vacuum cleaner pulled a good vacuum, but it was only enough power to pull the water about halfway up this long, large 6-inch suction line. So now we're doing it the old-fashioned way. So Mike's gonna manually pour the water into the top of this housing, which is gonna fill the pipe up the rest of the way. And we have to get the water all the way up in this pump until it's completely full. There can be no pockets of water inside this casing right here. Okay, it's gonna take a few buckets. Oh yeah! Wunderbar. Okay, all right, now, we put this valve here on purpose. Now that water's running out of that, we know this entire casing is full of water and the pump is completely primed. And right before we crank the pump up, we'll put a little bit more water and make sure that it's fully going out. See how it's starting to burp? Once we know that the entire case is full, we'll shut the valve, turn the tractor on, start pumping the water. All right, water's running out of our top of our case. We're gonna make sure to shut off our line because this is on the suction side. We don't want to suck anything, so I'm gonna cut this off, this off. Go for it, Mike. All right, now our pressure is telling us we're running about 15 PSI inside this pump. As Mike gives it a little bit of fuel slightly, my pressure gauge will go up. Now we're up to 20 PSI. You guys can't see the gauge, so we're gonna show you the old-fashioned way. Ready to throw some water, Mike? And we're pumping water, baby! All right, everybody. The Gorman-Rupp Model 64 AG pumps water. We made progress. We'll get it hooked in the system and get ready to pump water on the strawberries in the next few days. I'm super proud of Mike and Junior putting all the hard work into this thing. And thank you guys for watching these videos. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on these videos. Come see us down here at Darnell Farms on the banks of the Tuckasegee River. See you guys.